Hello and welcome back to another lecture. In this lecture, we will use CloudFormation to create NAT gateways in each public subnet to allow instances in our private subnet to have access to the internet. If you don't know how to create a NAT gateway, I recommend that you first watch the video in the description on how to create a NAT gateway in the management console. We are going to use this reference architecture to create our NAT gateways. And according to our reference architecture, we are going to create our NAT gateway in public subnet 1 and public subnet 2. We are also going to create two route tables. We are going to name the first route table private route table 1 and we'll name the second private route table 2. Private route table 1 is going to be associated with private subnet 1 and private subnet 3, and private route table 2 is going to be associated with private subnet 2 and private subnet 4. So let's open our text editor to start. I have opened my Sublime text editor. The first thing I'm going to do is save my template. I'll select File and I'll select Save As. Then I'm going to browse to the location where I want to save my template. I'll pick this folder. And in here, I'm going to save it as natgateway.yaml. And once you've typed the name, click Save. And we have saved our template. Before we start, another thing I'll do is open the management console. And I'm going to go to CloudFormation and I'm going to create our VPC stack. I'll select Create Stack. I'm going to choose my template. Then I'm going to select the VPC template from our last lecture and click Open. And I'll click Next. And I'm just going to name the stack. I'll call it VPC. Scroll all the way down, click Next. And scroll all the way down, click Next again. Review everything, scroll all the way down and click Create Stack. What I'm just doing here is creating the VPC stack. Once we are done with our NAT gateway template, we are going to create that stack on top of this VPC stack. The next thing I'm going to do is open another tab and in Google type CloudFormation documentation. And under your search results, select the CloudFormation documentation and select user guide. And that should bring you to the CloudFormation documentation. I'm going to dock this over here. The next thing I'm going to do is import my CloudFormation sections. So in the CloudFormation documentation, I'm going to select working with templates. And I'm going to select template anatomy. Then scroll down to the YAML syntax. I'm going to copy this and paste it into my CloudFormation template. Once you have pasted the section into your CloudFormation template, we are going to delete the sections we don't need. For our NAT gateway, we are not going to need the output section, so I'm going to delete it. We are not going to need the transform, conditions, mappings, and rules section. I'm going to select them and delete it. And we are also not going to need the metadata, so I'm going to delete the metadata. The only section you should have is template format, description, parameters, and resource. I'm also going to delete this at the top. And I'll delete this at the bottom. Now we can start building our template from top to bottom. The first section we are going to build is the template format. So in your CloudFormation documentation, scroll down. And under template sections, select the format version. And I'm going to scroll down to the YAML. And all we need to enter in here is the 2010-09-09. I'm going to copy it and paste it in here. Next, we are going to enter the description for our template. I'm going to go to the description And I'm going to enter this template creates a NAT gateway in each public subnet. And this is all we need to do for our description section. Next, we are going to create our perimeters. For this NAT gateway template, we are only going to create one perimeter. And we will use that perimeter to import our VPC stack into this template. Let me show you how to do that. So under your perimeters, press enter. And the first thing we are going to do is enter our perimeter logical name. Remember, the name is just any name you make up. So I'm going to call this perimeter logical name export VPC stack name. And this is going to be the logical name of my perimeter. I'm going to press enter. And I'm going to add two properties. The first one I'm going to add is description. And for the description, I'm going to enter something like this. And I've entered this description to help me understand the type of value that this perimeter will accept. And reading this description, I know that I need to enter the name of the VPC stack. So that's what this means. I'm going to press enter. And the next property I'm going to add is type. And for type, it is going to be a string just like we did in the VPC lecture. This is all we need to do to create our perimeter for this NAT gateway template. If you need more information on perimeters, come to your CloudFormation documentation and under working with templates, select perimeters. You can read more about perimeters and the perimeters property in here. The next section we are going to create is our resources section. Scroll down and select template reference. And scroll down and select resource and property reference. In here, you'll find the reference for AWS resource and properties type. The resource we are trying to create is a NAT gateway, and you can find that resource under EC2. So I'm going to scroll down to E. This is aligned in alphabetical order, so I'm going to go to E. I'll select EC2. Under this EC2 resource type, you will find all the information you need to create your NAT gateway. To create our NAT gateways, we are going to use these steps. First, we are going to allocate elastic IP address. Then we will create our NAT gateway in each public subnet. Then we will create a private route table. We will add routes to that private route table. Then we will associate those route tables to the private subnets. Let's create the first resource in our CloudFormation template, which is to allocate elastic IP address. I'm going to minimize this. And under this EC2 resource type, I'm going to look for elastic IP, which is right here. I'm going to select it. And if you scroll down to the YAML syntax, under the YAML syntax, you have all the information you need to create this resource. I've also created a template for you that has the resource type and properties we need to create this NAT gateway. This is the template. In this template reference, I have entered the logical name for all of our resources, and the resource type and properties are straight from the documentation. For example, for our elastic IP, this resource type and properties is the same as this one. And remember I said in the VPC lecture, for the properties for your resource type, in some cases, depending on your configuration, you don't have to use all the properties. So for our NAT gateway, we are only using the domain and the tags. That's why I only have that in here and you don't see the instance ID or the public IPv4 pool. What we are going to do is copy these resources in our NAT gateway template. Then we are going to fill the values in. I'm going to move this way, and I'm just going to dock this next to that. The first resource I'm going to create is to allocate an elastic IP. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to come to my NAT gateway template. Under resources, I'm going to press enter and come to the beginning and paste that resource in there. And all we need to do now is fill in our values. For the domain, if you look in the documentation, the domain only takes two values, either standard or VPC. For our NAT gateway, we are going to enter VPC in here. Then we are going to enter a tag for our Elastic IP. I'm going to enter a tag name. And I'm going to enter the value. I'll call it EIP1. And this is all we need to do to allocate an Elastic IP address. Remember, we need two Elastic IPs. So I'm going to come to my reference template. I'm going to copy that information for the second Elastic IP. Copy it. I'm going to come to my NAT gateway template. Press enter again. Come all the way to the beginning and paste it in there. And the next thing we are going to do is fill in our value. On that domain, we are going to enter VPC. And under tags, we are going to enter a name. And under value, we are going to call it EIP2. EIP stands for Elastic IP. We have Elastic IP1 and Elastic IP2. According to our list, next we are going to create NAT gateway in each public subnet. So I'm going to come to my reference template and I'm going to copy the first NAT gateway resource. I'm going to copy that and come to my NAT gateway template. Press enter again and press backspace all the way to the beginning and paste it in there. And what we are going to do is enter our information. The first information for the properties we are going to enter is the allocation ID. The allocation ID is the ID of the Elastic IP we created up here. So to reference it, you are going to use an intrinsic function. If you come back to your CloudFormation documentation and scroll down, scroll all the way down. I'm just going to go down and select intrinsic function. And in here, you will see all the intrinsic function in there. The intrinsic function we are going to use to get the allocation ID is the get attributes. And this is how you enter it. So come to the allocation ID and in here you will type it like this. And this is what it looks like. So what we are saying here is get the allocation ID of the Elastic IP we created up here. So if you see this logical name, it's the same as that. We are saying get the allocation ID of this Elastic IP address 1. So that's what that means. The next property we are going to enter is our subnet ID. Remember when we create our VPC? So let me go to my CloudFormation stack and I'm going to maximize this and I'm going to go to outputs. We export our subnet IDs, our VPC ID and our security group ID. Now we can import those values into our NAT gateway templates. And this is how you do it. So I'm going to dock this back. I'm going to go to my CloudFormation documentation. To reference an output from another CloudFormation template, you are going to use the import value intrinsic function. And this is how you enter it. So let me click on it to show you what this syntax looks like. And if I scroll down to the YAML, and this is what the syntax looks like. I'm going to copy this and under subnet ID, press enter and paste it in there. Once you've pasted, we are going to enter the value we want to import in here. And this is how you do it. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to type this. This is what it looks like. So what we are saying here is we are going to substitute the name of the VPC, that is exporting the values in here, and the subnet we want to reference is our public subnet 1. And remember, when we create our output in our CloudFormation stack, if I go back to our VPC CloudFormation stack, and I'm going to maximize this. For example, our public subnet 1 is VPC-public subnet 1, right? I'm going to minimize this and dock it here. And that is the same thing we are entering in here. So this sub is going to substitute this export VPC stack name with this perimeter. So when we are creating this NAT gateway stack, whatever name we give to our VPC, we are going to enter it in here, and that value gets import in here. So that's what this is saying. This is referencing the value we export from our VPC template. I hope that is clear. So if you need more information on it, just read in the documentation or use this as an example and you would understand it. The next thing we are going to do is create our tag. I'm going to give it a name. And I'm going to give it a value. I'll call it NAT gateway public subnet 1. This resource will create a NAT gateway in the public subnet 1. Remember, we need 2 NAT gateways. So let's create our second NAT gateway. I'm going to press enter again and come all the way to the beginning. Then I'll come to my reference template and I'm going to copy this second one. Copy it. And come back to my template and paste it in there. And we are going to enter our properties. For the allocation ID, remember you are going to use the getAttributeIntrinsic function. And it looks like this. For this second NAT gateway, we are attaching our Elastic IP2 to it. For the first one, we attach the Elastic IP1, and for this second one, we are attaching the Elastic IP2. So this NAT gateway 2 EIP is the same as that one. The next thing we are going to do is reference our subnet ID. Remember, according to our reference architecture, we want to put this NAT gateway in the public subnet too. So what we can do is let's just copy this. Copy it all the way to the beginning, and under subnet ID, press enter and come all the way to the beginning and paste it in there. So you should have something like this. And all you need to do is change this public subnet 1 to 2. Remember, this is how we export that value from our VPC template. For example, if I go to my VPC CloudFormation stack and I'm going to maximize this, you see that value is public subnet 2 VPC. And I'm going to minimize this again and dock it here. And that is the same thing we are referencing here. The next thing we are going to do is enter our tag. I'm just going to enter name. And I'm going to enter the value. So this time I'll say NAT gateway public subnet 2. The next resource we are going to create according to our list is we are going to create a route table. So I'm going to minimize this and I'm going to come to my reference template and I'm going to select the private route table resource. I'm going to copy it, come back to this template and press enter again, go all the way to the beginning and paste it there. And let me scroll up so you can see. We are going to enter the properties for this route table. The first property is the tag, so I'm going to give it a name. And the value is going to be private route table 1. Once you've entered your tag, the next property we are going to reference is our VPC ID. Remember, we export our VPC ID when we created our VPC template. And in our VPC stack, if I maximize it, you can see our VPC ID is right here. And the export name is VPC -VPC. So I'm going to dock that. And in here, we are going to use this same value. Copy that and come under VPC ID, paste it there. Then all you need to do is come to this beginning and press enter. Make sure there is an indent after it. And all you need to do is come here and change this to VPC. And this is how you reference a VPC ID in another CloudFormation template. The next thing we are going to do is add a route to this route table. So this route table can route traffic to the internet through our NAT Gateway 1. To do that, I'm going to come to my reference template and I'm going to copy this resource. Copy that and come back here and press enter again, come to the beginning, paste it in there. And we are going to enter our properties. The destination CIDR block is always going to be 0.0.0.0/0. The next property is our NAT Gateway ID, and we want to reference our NAT Gateway 1. So in here, you are going to use the ref intrinsic function and reference your NAT Gateway 1. And for the route table ID, we are also going to reference our private route table 1. And the next thing we need to do is associate private subnet 1 to this private route table we created. I'm going to go to my reference template and I'm going to copy this next resource, which is the private subnet 1 route table association. I'm going to copy it, come to my template, press enter again, come to the beginning and paste it there. We are going to enter our properties for this resource. The route table ID is going to be the ID of our private route table 1. So we are going to use the ref function to reference it. And the subnet we want to associate with this route table is our private subnet 1. Remember, our private subnet is in our VPC template. So to import it, you can just copy this. I'm going to copy this and come here and just paste it in there for now. And come back here to the beginning where that is. Press enter. So make sure you have that indent. And all we need to do is change this to private subnet 1. Next, we want to associate our private route table 3 to this route table. So I'm going to come to my reference template, copy that next resource, and come back here. I'm going to press enter again to the beginning, paste it in there. And we are going to enter our route table ID. Again, we are going to be referencing our private route table 1. So in here, I'll use the ref function. And for subnet ID, we want to reference our private subnet 3. So I'll copy this here because we want to import it in from our VPC template. And press enter, and you can start at the beginning and paste it in there. And the next thing we are going to do is make sure you change this to private subnet 3. So up to this point, we have created a NAT gateway in public subnet 1 and public subnet 2. And we also created a private route table 1. And we add a route to that private route table 1 to route traffic to the internet through the NAT gateway in the public subnet 1. Then we attach that private route table to private subnet 1 and private subnet 3. For your next assignment, I want you to create another route table and call it private route table 2. Then add a route to that route table to route internet traffic through the NAT gateway in the public subnet 2. Then associate that private route table 2 with private subnet 2 and private subnet 4. To complete this assignment, you can use what we have done up to this point as reference. So pause this video and see if you can complete this assignment on your own. To complete this assignment, I'm going to come to my reference template and I'm going to copy the private route table 2 resource right here, copy it. And I'm going to come back to my template, come to the bottom and paste it there. Then we are going to enter our value. The key, we are going to enter name. And for the value, we are going to enter private route table 2. And for the VPC ID, I'm just going to scroll up to my private route table 1 and I'm going to copy this information. And I'm going to scroll back down and press enter and come to the beginning and paste it in there. The next resource we are going to create is to add a route to this route table to route traffic through the NAT gateway in the public subnet 2. So I'm going to come to my reference template and I'm going to copy this resource, copy it, then come back to my template, press enter and come all the way to the beginning and paste it there. Then we are going to enter our information. The destination CIDR block is always going to be 0.0.0.0/0. And for the NAT gateway ID, we are going to reference NAT gateway 2. And for the route table ID, we are going to reference our private route table 2. And the next resource we are going to create is we are going to associate our private route table 2 to our private subnet 2. I'm going to come to my reference template, copy that next one, and come back here. I'm going to press enter again, and paste it in there. We are going to enter our route table ID. Then we are going to enter our subnet ID. I'm going to copy this up here and press enter and paste it down here. And make sure you change this to private subnet 2. And the last resource we are going to create is we are going to associate private subnet 4 to the private route table 2. I'm going to come to my reference template, copy that last resource, and come back here and press enter again, and paste it down there. I'm going to scroll up. Again, we are going to enter our route table ID, and I'll use the ref function. Then we are going to enter our subnet ID. I'm going to copy this and press enter, come to the beginning, paste it there. Make sure you have the indent and change this to private subnet 4. And this is all we need to do to create our NAT gateway template. I'm going to delete this extra line at the bottom. Then I'm going to scroll up and make sure you save your template. I'm going to select file and select save. And now we can go to the management console to create our NAT gateway stack on top of this VPC stack. I'm going to maximize this. To create another stack, I'm going to select create stack. Then we are going to select with new resources. Then we are going to upload a template file. Then select choose file and select your NAT gateway template and click open. Click next The stack name is the name of the stack you are about to create. So in here, I'm going to enter NAT gateway. And under parameters, in here, we are going to enter the name of the stack that exports the value that we reference in this NAT gateway template. And the name we gave that stack is VPC. So I'm going to type VPC in here and click next. And scroll all the way down, click next. And scroll all the way down again and select create stack. So I'm going to click refresh. CloudFormation is now creating the resources in our NAT gateway template. I'm going to give it some time to finish creating those resources. After waiting some time, CloudFormation has created all the resources in my NAT gateway template. And you can see it says create complete over here. There is no error. So if we go back to our VPC, we should be able to see all these resources in there. I'm going to right click and open in a new tab. I'm going to go there. Then under service, I'm going to scroll down to network and content delivery, select VPC. The first resource we created in our NAT gateway template is we allocated 2 elastic IPs. So in my VPC dashboard, I'm going to select elastic IPs. And in here, you can see the 2 elastic IPs we allocated. We called it EIP1 and EIP2, and you can see both in there. The next resource we created is NAT gateways. So in the VPC dashboard again, select NAT gateways on the left side. We should have 2 NAT gateways, and there you go, we have 2 NAT gateways. The first NAT gateway is using the first elastic IP, and the second NAT gateway is using the second elastic IP. Let's look at the subnet. You can see this NAT gateway is in the public subnet 1 and public subnet 2. The next thing we did is we created 2 private route tables. So on the left side, select route tables. And let's filter this to just show what is in our VPC. I'll select filter by VPC and select my test VPC. And in here, you can see the 2 private route table we created. We created private route table 1 and private route table 2. We associated 2 subnets to each route table, and you can see in here, we have 2 subnets associated to private route table 1. We have 2 subnets associated to private route table 2. Let's select private route table 1 and examine the routes. I'm going to select it, select routes, and you can see that this private route table 1 is routing traffic to the internet through this NAT gateway. And if I right click to open this NAT gateway in a new tab, this should be the NAT gateway 1 in the public subnet 1. I'm going to right click, open it in a new tab. And if I open that, you can see it is the NAT gateway in the public subnet 1. Let's go back to our route table. Next, if I select the subnet associations and right click on these subnets to open them in a new tab, this should be private subnet 1 and private subnet 3. I'm going to right click, open it in a new tab. That one is private subnet 3. I'm going to close this NAT gateway. If I go back to the route table, open the second one in a new tab. That is private subnet 1. I'm going to go back to the route table. I'm going to select private route table 2. And again, examine the route. It is also routing traffic to the internet through this NAT gateway. If I right click to open this NAT gateway in a new tab, that should be NAT gateway 2 in the public subnet 2. And there you go, NAT gateway public subnet 2. And I'm going to close all this. Next, I'm going to select the subnet associations. And this should be associated with private subnet 2 and private subnet 4. I'm going to right click, open it in a new tab. And that is private subnet 4. And if I right click and open this in a new tab, and that is private subnet 2. This is how you create a NAT gateway using CloudFormation. I'm going to close this, close that, and go back to my CloudFormation stack. One of the benefits to creating your stack this way is allocating an elastic IP address costs money, and you don't want to leave those resources running if you are not using it. So what I recommend is delete your NAT gateway stack, and you can leave your VPC stack. Then whenever you create EC2 instance in the private subnets that need to access the internet, then you can create your NAT gateway stack to allow those instances to have access to the internet. Then once you are done, you can delete this stack again. To delete this NAT gateway stack, select it and select delete, and select delete stack. And it is now deleting that NAT gateway stack. To delete this VPC stack, you have to wait for this NAT gateway stack to be deleted. Then once that's completed, you can now delete the VPC stack. I'm going to give it some time. And after waiting some time, my NAT gateway stack has been deleted. To delete my VPC stack, I'll select it and select delete and select delete stack. And if you give it some time, it is going to delete your VPC stack. This is how you create NAT gateway using CloudFormation. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.